Herzlich willkommen auch nochmal von mir.
Excuse me for this delay. So welcome once again. So on behalf of myself, so Sid Kabir, Culture Interactive. So this is something very good that we heard so far. So I'd like maybe then to reconnect my speech to some of these items. Because now, so we're going to talk about early interventions for right-wing extremist children and young people in the context of schools and youth welfare services. That's why, so there's a particularly good contact with the previous presentation. And as I said that, I'm going to also then show you then also some types of right-wing extremists, because of course there are different types, so different kind of features, and so that's the reason why we needed to have a particular action, and that's why so we worked every day like that. And I think that in the future there will be the same, and I think that there will be also the preventive measures then within this area. Very shortly, I belong to Cultures Interactors. This is associations that was founded in 2005, and it's dealing with young men that are not easy to reach in terms of democratic values for different reasons. And so since that model, we have developed different models, and we have also the model of conversational groups, as we heard, in order to reach out to young men, in order also then to open up their perspectives and their minds. This is what I want to say about our association, and so we can also say that since 2020, so we have seen that we have a particular office of prevention, counseling, and training, and knowledge transfer. So have a different topics. So within the expert office, and we have also a different materials and podcasts that are all available if you would like to maybe to deep dive some particular topics. But now about the context. So this is a practice-oriented typification of right-wing extremist youths, and then of course as a second item to deal with offers and approaches. Exactly. Now, practice-oriented typification of young people at risk. We have three different types, as we have seen from our practice, where this we need to have a new kind of approach. These are the different types, and we see that we have people, we have young people that have are self-motivated and turn to right-wing extremists in contests, and so we have to understand what we can do. So thanks to early process of conversion, and so that in this way, so we can also then see some experiences as our practical experiences. Type number one is the one that we normally think of when we believe, yes, that these are young people that are going to be radicalized. So this is a motivated right-wing extremists, and so how can we avoid this kind of a scenario? So these are young people that are normally not really active in the right-wing extremist scene, and so they're still in the orientation and trial phase, and are increasingly conspicuous in families, schools, youth institutions, and of course we can also understand that families are playing a very important role, and that's the reason why that we have to understand that we have to understand that this is going to be quite important. So these young people then are feeling particularly then attracted to the right wing scene, and I believe that in this way, so we are going to see particularly codes, particular than ways of going around, so habitual codes and lifestyles, have also the offer of belonging, sense making, adventure. And also then we see also a very particular lifestyle, as I was mentioning, and also then the political significance and the possibility of experiencing power. This is particularly important, and this is something that attracts young people, particularly in some regions. This is also quite important factors, because very often this can also then take you to terrorism, and then they feel attracted to the acceptance of violence in the scene, and they feel also attracted to gender roles that they can experience in these right-wing scenarios. So very traditional then men roles are traditional than a women's role, but of course now we have then a stronger pluralization of all these roles. This was type number one. So this is self-motivated. And then type two, this is environment-oriented young people with GMF attitudes, and these are young people that actually advocate anti-democratic, anti-human rights attitudes of group-based misanthropy. And this attitude is something which is perceived as a normal thing, so they do not perceive themselves as an extremist, and so even in the family, or maybe in schools as well, or maybe then also then in their town, so they do not feel particular extremist, and this probably is something that offers them the possibility to belong to a larger society, community, which means that and this is something which is very good. And this is something very, very important, and this is something that help them to perceive that their attitudes are normal, because they increasingly find them in their environment, and normally then in normal life they are not perceived in active entry process. And then we have the third type. So we see then children and young people from right-wing extremist feminine contexts. So they grow up in a feminine environment that is characterized by right-wing extremist ways of thinking, mindset, mentalities, and convictions. So we see here that there's no active turning conversion process, because they are born into right-wing extremism. And you see that we have also questions of child welfare and special requirements of protection that can be affected independently of right extremism. So we see that these young people need to be treated in a different way, because they believe they belong actually to a very important process of their life, and so we have a particular then to focus on them, because they look like being born in a kind of right-wing extremism environment, and so this is something that we need really to consider as a kind of problematic type. So this is not a group of people that are only interacting with right-wing or extremist community, but they have really to deal with right-wing extremist family. And so that's the reason why we need a particular focus, because of course their mentality with their mindset needs to have a particular focus. So now, we have a special challenges for the three types. So type 1 needs pedagogical offers of early dissociation, if necessary, via referral structures of youth welfare, and type and of course this is something that can be discussed together with our colleagues, so that in order to maybe then offer a new offers in order to convert these people to normal life. Type 2, this is probably the most widespread type, and it poses great challenges for schools and youth facilities with regard to strengthening our democratic and misanthropic attitudes. This is something we can find in many different regions, and sometimes then we see that this is something that we can do in a very good way. Then type number 3, so youth welfare officers in hotspot regions with regard to right-wing extremism should be further qualified on this topic and have specialized youth welfare services at hand. So very shortly about offers and kind of access of selective prevention. So this is something that we need to understand here. So we need to have environment and parent counseling, especially it's very difficult because parents sometimes do not recognize their children's extremism, and so for them it's not easy to accept to have the children follow and attend this kind of training course and modules. And then there are further training. There's a kind of further training of kind of multipliers. So this is something that is particularly interesting because they try to get in contact with young extremists as soon as possible. That have outreach street work, which is offline and online. Then we have individual and group training on issues such as kind of reprimand by school or youth welfare services in criminal proceedings. We're particularly working on that. So this is something particularly important because if you work for 6 months in an intensive way with a group or small or young people, so probably that they probably have more results compared to some other reprimand projects that we already heard. And in this way, so you can build trust. This is a particularly important motivating project and things like that in this way. So then this is a very motivational, I think. And of course, the radicalization training, association offers in school environments. Now we don't have so much time, so we're coming down to recommendations for a good prevention architecture. Something that we need, so especially if we have a multi-layers scenario when we have different types of young people that of course are dealing with this kind of right extremist scene. What should we do? What should we know? And this is very important that the whole prevention structure and architecture is particularly focusing on schools. We know that we need to have regular structures for all children and young people, especially in schools. This must be well developed, must be strong. And we have a then and a very strong need for that, and that's why we need, of course, to really then do everything possible. As you can see, maybe then see in the next item, so increased resources funded by the public sector with SGB8 for institutions and regions with increased need for intervention in the area of selective prevention for outpatient and inpatient youth welfare services. And not only that, we know that we need to have all the resources for all the institutions that will with this kind of problems with right-wing extremism. Of course, we know there's an increased need. And then, of course, we need to have, of course, the long-term sustainable promotion and also intensive pedagogical offers via youth fair and schools and further training. Yes, we have just one more minute. The last indication. So we were already then attacked by parents with our school projects because they asked us why should we send our children to this kind of courses and offers, and we see that we this kind of topic was then verified and checked upon by experts, and they said, of course, this is constitutional, social, and protected by law, and we see also the potentials and the requirements for political education in extremism prevention, distancing and exit work in schools and youth welfare. So there are many different possibilities to develop also this kind of topics in schools, of course, to try to promote the political education of these children, not only in these topics, but also based on right-wing extremism prevention. You can see here the online page, so you can also then find all different reports there that you can also then download. And I've come now to the conclusion of my prevention. I'm 1 minute late. I'm sorry with that.